So let me sort of formally start the webinar. My name is Vishal Sachdev. I'm the director of the Illinois Maker Lab, and I'm right now in the lab that you see behind me. Our sort of question to everybody is, what will you make? It looks inverted in my screen. I don't know how you guys see it. Hopefully you see it the right way up. So we are offering this webinar as part of our online course on 3D printing that runs on Coursera. I believe most of you who are here with us as viewers would probably be either in the first course that Eric Reinfleisch teaches, he's also a professor here, or the second course that I'm teaching on 3D printing applications, again on Coursera. So that specialization has a set of 5 courses, though we haven't launched the course 4 right now, so there's some delays on that. So hopefully those of you who've done course 1 and 2 will do course 3 with us, which is on software, and then move on to hardware and then the capstone. With that said, I would like to welcome all of you and welcome our guest speakers, Kaustav and Stephanie, for the webinar. All the viewers today, I request you to introduce yourself in the chat and sort of get to know each other as well. We will use the chat for our Q&A as well. So Kaustav and Stephanie will, take us through their chat on broadening access to maker education for about 20-25 minutes. Feel free to, raise questions during the talk on the chat, and we'll pose those questions to them at the end. And we plan to finish in about 40 minutes. With that, I'll officially welcome Kaustav and Stephanie. Thank you for joining us, Kaustav. It's been, I know I've worked with or known, work at the Infosys Foundation, and I know Stephanie has an illustrious career before, she started working with you as well. So I've had the opportunity to meet both of them at various maker conventions or conferences. And I'd love to give the stage to them to talk about first, a little bit about yourselves, and then how the foundation is working to bring, broadening access to maker education. So over to you.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Vishal. So yeah, as you said, we're going to try and wrap this in about 20 to 25 minutes. My name is Kaustav Mitra. I am the chair and president of Infosys Foundation USA. We're a private charitable foundation focused heavily on CS and maker education. And in the next slide, we'll tell you a little bit more about the kind of work that we do. And what we were hoping to do today is share more about some of the initiatives we're running here. A caveat in advance, a lot of our work really is specific to the US, and I'm seeing out here, we've got visitors from all around the world. I see folks from Egypt, from Turkey, from Greece, and from so many other places. So what our hope here really is that you get a flavor of the kind of things that we're trying to do here, and maybe there are organizations in your own countries which can decide how to, which might be able to take some of these ideas and run with them all the way around the world. But a quick introduction from Steph as well, and then we'll move into the rest of the webinar.
Thanks so much, Kaustav, and thanks so much, Vishal. Hi, everybody. So I'm Stephanie Santoso, and I'm currently a senior program fellow at the foundation, working pretty closely with Kaustav and the team. I've been working with the foundation, helping to kind of build out the initiatives there, specifically supporting maker education for about a year and a half. And prior to that, I was actually working at the White House during the Obama administration, where I was the senior policy advisor for making. So President Obama had an initiative and a priority called Nation of Makers that was really focused on thinking about the ways to broaden access to the maker movement as it relates to education, but also as it relates to entrepreneurship and local manufacturing and community-based problem solving. So I was working there at the Office of Science and Tech Policy. I'm really passionate about the work that the foundation does, and I'm looking forward to sharing more about what we're doing here with you today.
Thanks so much, Steph. So how do we actually, there we go, okay. So just a quick backgrounder on the foundation. As I mentioned, we are a private charitable foundation. A lot of our work is grant making, and the grants that we make typically are in the fields of K-12, computer science, and maker education. We've really been active for probably about for about 3 years or so, since 2015. And as I mentioned, the majority of our work is in K-12. We have a strong focus on targeting underserved communities, so that is communities who currently we feel are being left out of the conversation. And these could be minorities, these could be people with disabilities. It's of course, by gender, anywhere where we feel that we can help do our part to make this more inclusive and more equitable. The vast majority of our work really has been in teacher professional development, and we'll talk more about that later. But there are kind of 3 broad buckets, like Steph has called out over here. The first one, like you see, is professional development. The second is finding more ways of supporting hands-on learning. And this applies both on the CS and Maker side of our activities. And the third thing is what we feel is a unique privilege that we have as a funder, to try and bring together a variety of different stakeholders to talk about these issues. So we've got people working on the broad topic, for example, of maker education from government departments of education. We've got many nonprofits. We've got universities like the University of Illinois trying to encourage this among their students. And of course, we have schools and school districts themselves. And we see ourselves as being able to pull all of these voices together, so that hopefully we can find increasing ways of collaboration and alignment. So the first quick introduction is actually about some of our professional development efforts. We've been supporting PD for a while. This year, we've combined all of our PD efforts into one giant summer institute for professional development called Pathfinders. And this is something we hope to repeat every year. But I'm going to hand off to Steph, and Steph will tell you a little bit more about Pathfinders and the programs who are participating there.
Yeah, so this is really this is the first year that Pathfinders will be taking place. But the idea is that we would have a Pathfinder Summer Institute each year around the same time period. So if you can see on the slide here, this year's institute will be taking place at Indiana University Bloomington. Excuse me, and it'll be taking place from July 15th to the 20th. And really the idea is to bring together what will be over 800 K through 12 CS teachers that are really interested about developing skills and experiences specific to CS and maker education. And I think that the combination of having PD opportunities both within CS and maker at one location in one institute is really unique. A lot of times you have computer science professional development solely as computer science development, professional development, and maker as a separate professional development experience. And as we know, there's actually quite a bit of overlap that can take place when you talk about computer science and maker education. So we're really excited about this. The idea for the Summer Institute is to make it as inclusive as possible. And so there's an open invitation for teachers and educators to apply to the program. And the idea is that the foundation will, there are a couple of different ways that the foundation is going to help with supporting tuition and travel for teachers, so that a teacher that is living and working in Indiana and a teacher that is living and working in Anchorage are equally able to attend this particular Summer Institute. So if you are a K through 12 teacher that's interested in really engaging in computer science and making an education, I'd encourage you to check out the Pathfinders website and to apply. The deadline is April 2nd. So we've still got a couple months, but it's coming up and we've got a lot of interest, but we really want to be as inclusive and to have as broad a swath of teachers there as possible.
Yeah, so to add to a couple of things to what Steph said, I know Vishal, you had mentioned that this content lives on in your course for a while. So I did want to mention that hopefully we'll be doing this every year, and the time frame will be about the same, with teachers able to apply in spring for this in summer. The way we've structured it is the foundation is covering 50% of all costs for teachers, and this includes travel, this includes boarding and lodging. And we've actually, what our hope is to structure this in a manner to be able to get to teachers who are outside of major metropolitan areas. So we are especially interested in teachers coming from rural areas, from smaller towns where there won't be a lot of PD opportunities. And I'd like to call out some of the more interesting Maker tracks that we have there. Vishal, I know you've probably checked out the website. We've got two really good programs coming out of University of Colorado at Boulder from the Atlas Institute. One is on luminous science, being done by Ben Shapiro there, where he's bringing PD around making Japanese lanterns, but then visualizing data from a classroom on these Japanese lanterns and the way the light patterns are displayed. So there's an IoT element to it. There's a lovely course being coming, and I forget the lady's name, Hyunju Oh, I believe, again from the Atlas Institute, which is called Paper Mechatronics. And this is around the design of functioning machines made out of paper, which can then be controlled from a programmable microcontroller at the back end. And these are all exercises depending on the level of complexity meant for K-12 teachers.
Nice.
We have another lovely program coming out of the Create Lab at Carnegie Mellon, which they are running collaboratively with Georgia Tech, called Art in Motion, which introduces teachers to the Hummingbird and Finch robots and the ability to make moving sculptures using these robotic frames, which have been developed. And one other program which may be of particular interest here is one being done by Adam Maltese, actually at IU Bloomington in collaboration with the Sonoma County Office of Education, called the Maker Educator Collective. And I know they plan to introduce a whole bunch of actually more broad tools and infrastructure for Maker educators. So everything from 3D printing to wood cutting to Arduinos and microbits and the whole gamut, with the idea that teachers, once they know how to use these tools, they'll be able to take them back into the classroom and come up with new projects their kids could do. So
Nice.
with that, we'll move on to the next one. And this is a particularly exciting one. This is going to be our third year, actually, I guess, of running the Infy Maker Awards. These are awards specifically targeting makers of various forms. And Steph has been leading this initiative this year. So I'm going to hand off to Steph, and she'll tell you more about the awards.
Yeah, so the Infy Maker Awards is really an opportunity for us to be able to directly provide both funding and then additional professional development support for schools, libraries, museums, youth-serving organizations that are really focused on expanding opportunities for maker education in their communities. And so if you the contest itself has taken place around the same time every year. Actually, the applications are currently open for this year's competition, and we've just got about, I think it's now 19 days, so you still have time to apply, and it's the deadline's March 6th. And so let me tell you a little bit more about what the contest is about and what it entails. As I mentioned before, really we recognize that a lot of what's happening with regards to making an education happens not just in school, but it also happens out of school. And so really we're trying to create opportunities to support the schools and organizations that are doing this in the formal learning space and informal learning space. And so really the idea behind the awards is that each winning organization would receive a $10,000 grant. And that is designed to be really flexible in terms of what a school or organization would do with that funding. So, depending on an organization, the grant might be, most useful for a particular organization to help to build out a makerspace structurally or add additional equipment or materials to the space. But another school or organization might decide that, providing additional robust professional development for their faculty might be a better option, or helping to develop, some community outreach programs or new collaborations. So that funding is really, what it gets used for is really up to the grantee, to the winning organization, as long as it somehow ties back to maker education. And then we're also going to be providing a maker education professional development package for 2 staff members from each school or organization, and that will actually be for those 2 staff members to attend the Pathfinders Summer Institute. So that'll be fully covered for them. And then the sort of third aspect of the prize for the contest is that every year the foundation hosts an annual conference that is focused specifically on CS and Maker Ed, and it's called Crossroads, and this year it'll be taking place in May 21st to 24th, and in Scotts Valley, California. So each winning organization will be able to send 2 staff members to that as well. So if we go,
and Vishal, I know we're seeing you over there, so
I look forward to it.
That's right. The venues, the experience is a little bit different this year than in previous years. So it's going to be a great opportunity to get together and talk about some of these important issues. So just from a real practical perspective, in terms of, I know that there are a number of folks who are from outside of the US. So this particular contest is specifically for schools and organizations that are based in the U.S., that are registered within the U.S. But I think thinking about sort of that what Kaustav had referenced about kind of the role that the foundation is really trying to play in terms of sort of thought leadership, I think a program like this could actually be really fantastic, and something that is replicable and adaptable in other countries. And in fact, we actually have a version of the Infy Maker Awards that we have run in previous years in India for communities and organizations in India. And so just from a practical perspective, really quickly, the application process is very straightforward. We actually wanted the program to be kind of not the typical, maybe a little bit more lengthy grants application, but something that is more in the maker spirit. So we, in terms of what we're asking organizations to submit, one is just a description of how your organization would use an Infy Maker Award. So 900 characters is about 350 words, so it's actually not real long. A budget to go with that plan. A video, so we're really asking you to, and this can simply be something that you take with the video feature on your phone, but just no more than 90 seconds, but showing us, a little bit more about what your school or organization is like, who are the students that you serve, and really why do you want to have this Infy Maker Award? What do you plan to do with it? Letters of support. So these are optional, but we really would recommend them. So 1 or 2 letters. The idea is to have letters from either organizations that you've worked with in the past who have collaborated with you on maker education initiatives, or if you're sort of really new to this space and what you're looking for is a grant to kickstart making in your classroom or in your organization, is a community organization that you plan to work with if you were to get the Infy Maker Award. And then the last 2 elements are a description about how you plan to keep these efforts sustainable. So one of the things that we're also really big on is supporting and ensuring that maker education and computer science education, for that matter, is not just a one-off experience, right? It's not just, oftentimes a lot of programs, whether in school or out of school, end up having to do sort of one-off one-off programs based off of the funding that they receive. And so thinking about how do you make some of these initiatives much more sustainable and available for students in the long term. And then the last element is to share an Instructable of a maker-oriented project for students. So many of you may know about the a sort of open source platform called Instructables that where you can download different kinds of maker projects and upload your own maker projects. And they have a platform there specifically available for teachers. And so what we'd like to do is to actually have each organization that applies upload and contribute to that, that shared repository.
Thanks, Steph.
Yep.
So I know we're running low on time, so I'm going to skip ahead through some of these things, the pieces that we have. The one thing that's worth mentioning, again, keeping in mind the international audience on this webinar, is that unfortunately, yes, the awards are US specific only. So it's open to any school or youth-facing organization in the US. We have some terrific judges, and if you go to the website, infymakers.com, that is how Vishal posted on the chat, you can see these details over there. We also have a few examples. You can actually check out others who have won this in the past. But this is an organization called Lab Revolution, which is out of Missouri, and another organization out of Bruton, Alabama. And you can hear more about, you can check out the kinds of things that they've done in the past. And moving on to kind of our third pillar, which we had referenced earlier, one of the things we started 2 years ago was what we call the Why I Make campaign. And this really was intended to drive awareness of the maker movement and try and bring it further into the mainstream. So we've been making these really short episodic videos with makers with interesting stories. You probably recognize Adam Savage, who of course is was the co-host of the Mythbusters show. But as you can see, we just released one that we shot with astronaut Don Pettit of NASA. And we hope to keep making more of these. You can see these at whimake.org. You can see these in our YouTube channel. And I know, Steph, you just finished shooting 2 of these with the team this weekend.
Yes.
And
are we keeping the who we are featuring?
Yeah, I think we should keep that. Okay. We should keep that a surprise. But they were fun.
There will be 2 new episodes coming out later this year, and actually probably a couple more. But yeah, we're really excited. So definitely check those out. And then also, there's what we really want to do too is to encourage others to share why they make. And so if you're on Twitter, the hashtag is why I make, and let us know why you make.
Yeah, and we're hoping that all of you will share your stories. And if you put it with the tag, then it gives us a chance to see them and retweet them and hopefully inspire others. And last, Crossroads. And I'll, again, Steph, hand off to you on this. I know you're leading the Maker track at Crossroads.
Yeah, no, so as I mentioned before, this is the annual conference that the foundation hosts every year, and this is really a big part of this, right, is around kind of this ability for as a foundation, as a philanthropic organization, to be able to convene, you know, a whole host of different stakeholders, different kinds of organizations around these particular topics of computer science and maker education. And this will be, correct me if I'm wrong, the 4th Crossroads, is that right?
This will be our 4th.
This will be the 4th Crossroads. You know, it's really shaping up to be a pretty fantastic program. So we're going to have approximately 300 individuals from all across the country that will be participating, a mixture of educators, individuals working in this space, nonprofit, in the industry sector. Really, we've had a number of different main tracks. We have a CS track, a maker track, and we also have a policy track, realizing that policy is a big part of the conversation in terms of what we're talking about when we talk about broadening access and computer science for all, and thinking about what does maker education for all really look like as well. And so the program itself will stretch across 3 days. And just to give you an example of the kinds of sessions, they're not like the typical conference in that they're just a series of presentations and panels, but they're also, it's an opportunity for individuals to workshop around some of these really important topics. So the Maker track is actually going to have topics that look at things like how do you integrate Maker education to align with curriculum goals? What are some of the best practices and challenges around sustainability, as I mentioned, with regards to Maker education and running a makerspace? So I'm gonna, I know we want to give plenty of time for questions and answers. So I'll pause there.
And I know there's a question over there, Steph, maybe could respond to as well. And Vishal, I don't know if you had a chance to check out the attendee list, but I'm super happy with it. So I know you're going to find a lot of exciting people to meet at Crossroads this year. And that's it. That's the end of our deck. We have some links over there, which will give you more information about the foundation and how to find us on social media. But Vishal, handing it back to you for any for taking it forward for the rest of this.
Thank you so much. So we had, and as I just wrote on the chat, if you type anything, just make sure it's marked to all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see that. And we had, I think, a question on how many winners. Kaustav answered that, 10 for this year. And then there was a question by Sylvia, I believe, who was asking about the 2 letters of support are included in each one.
Sure. I will type out I'll type out an answer in the webinar chat as well, so we have the record of it. But the letters themselves can either be support letters from an organization that is partnered with you, if you're the applicant, say you're a school. So it can be essentially coming from an organization that has worked collaboratively with that school in the past around something that is related to making an education, or it can also be an organization that you plan to work with if you receive the Infy Maker Award, because we also recognize that we want to support organizations and schools that actually may not have necessarily done a lot around making an education in the past, but are really looking to kickstart what they're doing. So we really want to support the broad range of organizations in different stages of integrating making an education into what they're doing.
Yeah, we'll continue taking questions on the chat. I had, one thing in terms of just sort of a personal experience to sort of share for people who might be here or who see this webinar later, in terms of attending Crossroads or participating, I guess, in the broader community around making. I think particularly Crossroads and the work your foundation has been done. What I found different from other sort of conferences or a typical PD effort was that it's much more, you get to know people a lot more. And I think that was my takeaway from the last time I visited, that, it's not huge, like 4,000 people and you can't figure out what to do. I mean, it's kept small and it's one area. So, I think the passion I saw from many of the presenters, I think that was really the takeaway for any of these meetups is sort of learning from the passion that other maker educators really are sharing. So I think encourage people to check these out and sign up. And certainly this, I think for us, particularly in the Midwest, the new summer program, I think would be valuable for many teachers in the area.
Absolutely, thanks. And yeah, I mean, we definitely designed Crossroads, Vishal, to your point, to be an immersive experience to give people the chance to get to know each other. This time, you might have seen we're doing it differently. We're actually doing it at a meditation retreat.
Yeah.
So it's going to be.
I'm looking forward to the yoga classes.
I know it'll be different, and we're also excited about our opening keynote. This time, we launched the Seymour Papert Memorial Lecture, and being delivered by Cynthia Solomon, who you may have met at previous Crossroads as well. But of course, she's been called the mother of making for the work that she did in bringing kind of hands-on learning along with Seymour Papert and actualizing that. I see a question here about contests or competitions for people from India. We have run the Infy Maker Awards in the past in India, but that it was actually done by our funder, which is Infosys. So we collaborated with them, but it was run by them. We aren't aware of any plans that they have of repeating that competition, but we will definitely take the message back to them that there seems to be interest and appetite for doing that.
Yeah, so, I think even in our audience in the course, I think India is the second biggest country represented among learners. Then, of course, we have quite a few from South America. So, U.S. audience in our courses, I think in the first one we've had about 15,000 people or more come in, and I think only 30% is from maybe less is from the U.S.
Excellent.
So, any other questions from any of the other attendees? Well, if there are no other questions, I will thank both Kaustav and Stephanie for joining. As you see, the links are here. If you need to communicate this message to some other stakeholders, look out for a recording of this message on our YouTube channel that's on 3D Printing Profs. And of course, those of you who are inside the course or you're not yet in, once you enroll, you will also see this video listed in one of our readings in the second course in the series that I teach on 3D printing applications.
And if I could add, Vishal, I don't know if you had a chance to see the NASA video yet, but that should be of interest to you because astronaut Don Pettit, who we filmed over there, holds the patent for the first object invented in space, which was a 3D printed cup for actually
nice.
to drink coffee.
It's an anti-gravity.
Yeah, it's called the zero gravity coffee cup, which allows astronauts to drink coffee from an open container.
Wow.
Zero gravity environment. So yeah, you can definitely see that video on our YouTube channel, but I know you'd enjoy watching it.
Oh yes, we are actually on a side note. We are part of a grant for putting the CubeSats into the NASA mission for leaving later this year. So as part of, we have a sort of a engineering led course where the course is about creating CubeSats. And so it's a consortium of a couple of universities, and UIUC was the lead on that. And the business students got involved in terms of project management and coordination. And there was communications also involved for writing the stories around this experience for students. And that CubeSat is set to launch with the other NASA missions later in 2018.
Oh, how exciting!
Oh, that's exciting. Congratulations.
So thank you both for joining, and thank you to all the viewers. I know Sylvia had a question about our long-awaited hardware course, and we keep trying to make excuses for that, but really, it's a third party who's building out that course with Ultimaker, and we are almost there. So maybe another month or so, we would be able to launch that course. So please stay with us. It'll be out soon. So thank you all for joining. Thank you, Kaustav and Steph. I look forward to meeting you at Crossroads.
Thanks so much, Vishal.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.